coverage now continues on a special edition of Evening Edition.
If you've evacuated Galveston, Texas, this is what you're missing tonight. Wind-fed flames here in the Galveston, Texas, and winds gusting over 50 miles an hour. Reports of water piling up on the north side of the island.
And we're in the middle of a long night in Texas and Louisiana. Whipping winds are taking their toll on buildings, trees, and power lines. Hi, everybody. We're under storm alert here at the Weather Channel. I'm Hillary Andrews.
I'm Dave Schwartz here at Hurricane Central, and Hurricane Rita is roaring ashore right now.
Yeah, we're already seeing the eye wall hitting Cameron, Louisiana, where we've seen wind gusts up to 112 miles per hour. Holly Beach really getting the worst of it, that right front quadrant. Within the hour, watch out. Grand Lake, Sulphur, Lake Charles, that eye wall will make it towards you.
This is going to be awesome in Sulphur, Louisiana here. The impact from Hurricane Rita has spread hundreds of miles inland. We've got a team coverage of Hurricane Rita. Mike Bettis is in Beaumont, Texas, and Jeff Morrow is in Sulphur, Louisiana.
And let's start with Jeff Morrow. Jeff, we've just been told 20 miles to your south, that's where the eye wall is. What kind of plans do you have when those 112 mile per hour gusts head your way?
Well, we're hoping to bring the satellite dish down, obviously. We're going to broadcast from you here at the top of the hour and at the bottom. Beyond that, I think we're going to have to break things down here. It's going to get a little bit too dangerous. What I want to do now is have my cameraman pan off of me and look behind me. I'm a little sheltered where I am, but look at the wind just roaring past this building here and in through those lights. Again, if I would step out from behind this building that I'm being sheltered by and out into that, that's a pretty steady about 60 mile an hour wind right there with gust over hurricane force. I mean, at times here you can just hear the wind roaring. You can hear it coming, and then just a huge blast of wind goes on by and carries some debris with it going on by. It's really kind of dangerous to be standing out in that because it's pitch black everywhere. In fact, we can show you just about when the power went out to a lot of Sulphur right here. Again, our cameraman was out shooting some pictures, and you can see the lights just go like that, like somebody turned out the lights, and that's exactly what happened. Again, power is out probably to at least 90% of this area. The only area that has any lighting at all is what we're looking at behind me there. For some reason, whether it's underground power or whatever, a couple of these hotels or motels here still have some power, so you can see the wind kind of whipping behind me there past some of those lights. Again, we'll try to stay up here for about another half hour or 45 minutes, but after that, it does look like that eye wall is going to be coming this way, and it's going to be too dangerous for us to be up, and we're going to definitely seek shelter. Let's go a little bit farther to my west, where Mike Bettis has been holding out in Beaumont, Texas. And Mike, I guess your winds are coming out more of the north, but probably fairly almost as strong.
Yeah, the wind's definitely starting to pick up now, Jeff. We've noticed that throughout the past half hour or so. The rain has been relentless and really cats and dogs pouring on us at this time. The power of Rita has been very impressive. We've got more pictures to show you from around this area, especially just down to our south as we make our way toward Port Arthur. Check out this Dairy Queen. Just getting shredded minute by minute. Pieces of this building getting torn apart. Pieces flying off of it, falling down. And, you know, it was lights out there at the Dairy Queen, that's for sure. Good news is nobody there in Port Arthur. Everybody evacuated. That was a ghost town yesterday. And then today, the local authorities pulled out. No EMS service, and even the fire department pulled out of town. They actually evacuated and set up a command post well inland into Lumberton, past where we are even. But boy, Rita now rolling on shore and producing huge winds. Cameron, Louisiana right now, wind gusts at 111 miles an hour. You make your way toward Marsh Island, those winds now gusting at 83, sea rim 93, sea rim 83, and where we are here in Beaumont, those winds now gusting in excess of hurricane force, 81 mile an hour wind gusts with sustained tropical storm force winds. So, Dave and Hillary, wow, it has gotten nasty here in the last half hour or so, and we're going to keep going tonight to show you the conditions as Rita continues to make landfall.
Yeah, 76-mile-per-hour wind gusts. That's what you're sitting through there, Mike. Please
Hang in there.
stay safe.
Boy, these guys do a great job
They
reporting
do.
out there in this wild weather.
You know, we've been talking a lot about the winds. Keep in mind the rain will be a major problem. The Neches and Sabine rivers, we're expecting to see 10 to 15 inches of rain falling through the area, locally up to 25 inches. Through these tributaries, it's all going to end up in the Sabine and the Neches. We are looking for significant inundation of structures and roads, and that's from the National Weather Service. So this
East
is gonna
Texas, right? East Texas, western Louisiana, many of these rivers. The Sabine River runs right through this yellow cone. And so we've got water coming down from the sky due to a slowing tropical cyclone as it moves onshore, and then water coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. Near where the eye is making landfall in Cameron Parish tonight, a rise in sea level of 12 to 15 feet, locally 20 feet. These are the kind of images that are going to be making news on the Weather Channel and your local newspaper for the next several days as we find out what we're left with at first light. This is low country down here.
It sure is low country. Take a look. Most of the coastline is below 5 feet in elevation. And just be safe in knowing that Beaumont is at least 10 to 20 feet. So we do have our folks in very safe areas.
We trust that you are in a safe place this wild night. Some of the damage from Sulphur, Louisiana earlier tonight.
This program was brought to you by V8. Drink smarter.
With more Rita coverage at weather.com. Features like expert analysis, blogs, on-location video, and reports keep you ahead of the storm. For the latest up-to-the-minute information on Hurricane Rita, go to weather.com.
Stay tuned for your local on the 8s, brought to you by Circuit City. For the hottest new technology, think Circuit City. Just what I needed.
2 letters, TV. Simple, right? Except these days there's HD TV, ED TV.
We could get an LCD TV.
If we don't get help, we'll end up with NO TV.
The Extreme TV Makeover is going on now at Circuit City. All digital TVs $499 and up are on sale now. Plus no interest for 24 months on all TVs $499 and up. Circuit City.
You're watching the Weather Channel, Hurricane Central. Coming up, the latest on Rita. But right now, it's your local on the 8s.
Cameron, Louisiana, you are getting pounded. 111-mile-per-hour wind gusts just about 10 minutes ago. Holly Beach seeing the worst of it right now. We have the edge of the eye wall just nosing across the beach. As we take a look at those rain bands stretching well past I-10, keep in mind we've already had a report of wind flipping over an 18-wheeler on I-10, and that was near mile marker 29. That's near West Lake in Calcasieu Parish, blocking the entire roadway, both directions.
Well, you can't say we weren't given advance warning on this one. Galveston was one of the first places that people evacuated in advance of Rita.
And we get the latest from Galveston, Texas, from KTRK reporter Mark Garay.
In terms of structural damage and things like that, not a problem so far. This thing has a really big kick to it, though, as you can probably tell. We're at 53rd now and the seawall, and this is probably the most violent place you can get with the winds coming straight through the city out of the north and kicking back into the bay. You can see different pieces flying all over the place here, and that's really part of the big danger about being out here. If you live in Galveston and if you're worried about your homes, we have not found any structural damage yet on the island. Just a lot of wind, a lot of heavy rain at times, and the gusts can literally knock you off your feet if you're not careful. Now, if this is a Cat 1 storm, I would really hate to see be in the middle of a Cat 5 storm as well. Let me give you a shot now of the breakers out there. I don't know if you can see it too well, but the waves are actually falling short of the seawall at this point. The surf hasn't really been a problem. We haven't seen those huge waves crashing over the seawall, the 7-foot seawall. Once again, the San Luis Hotel did lose power, and there are pockets of energy that are out in the city.
That was Mark Garay, KTRK. What a wild night, huh?
Amazing waves out there. It was a long, slow, and for many a painful process of evacuating Texas prior to Rita.
Storm tracker Jim Cantori shows us what people had to endure to get to safety.
And good evening from Houston, Texas tonight, where the city again shut down for the last couple of days. Hard to believe it's a Friday night in Houston and there aren't any souls to be found out here on the streets tonight, which is exactly the way we want it. Even though the wind and the rain is not bad yet, it certainly could be as we go through the overnight hours. But perhaps the worst effects, if you will, from Rita have already occurred, and that was with the evacuation. Let me show you some pictures here. Cars stranded on the sides of roads, pretty much running out of gas as a result of being on the road for some 18 to, in some cases we heard, up to 48 hours here. And when people tried to get gas, they couldn't because gas stations had run out. Of course, the typical run on gas when you try and get 2 million people out of a city, that is exactly what's going to occur. Today, slowly but surely, tankers came to fill some of those cars on the interstates, but in most cases, those cars were abandoned. But the good news is some people were brought in either by bus or people that they didn't even know, perfect strangers willing to pick them up and get them out of harm's way before Rita could make landfall. As big as this evacuation was and as heartbreaking and as mind-boggling as it was for so many people, you had to admit it went off pretty well. Let's go ahead and hear from a lady now who gives us an idea of what she went through during this evacuation process.
We ran out of gas. We didn't have no water. I mean, I was just through. I said, we're just going to go back to Texas City. So we went back to Texas City last night. And then I heard the weather news again, and then they got me more scared. So we head out to Houston. We just got back, with my friend's house. And now they're telling us that the highway is kind of clear. So we're going to try to see if we can head out to Dallas.
So after all of this, it appears that Houston will not deal with the brunt of this initial part of the storm. However, there is still a flood threat in this area should Rita decide to come back this way. I'm Jim Cantori in downtown Houston. Back to you.
And with the onslaught of a landfalling hurricane, always tornado threat. And we've got them tonight. You see the red boxes, tornado watch till 6 o'clock in the morning. That does not include Houston. It's from the eye wall eastward in this case. Notice all these parishes. East Baton Rouge Parish. National Weather Service said they saw circulation on radar near Baton Rouge, moving northwest at 55 miles per hour. So if you live northwest of Baton Rouge, get away from windows, get to the lowest floor of your home. Also up here toward Alexandria. See these outer bands away from the core. Even here at the core, there were automatic tornado warnings that were issued for residents of Cameron Parish, Calcasieu Parish, Orange County, and Jefferson County here in Texas, because the eye wall contains F2 strength tornadic winds. Well, the hurricane force winds have now made it onshore here in southwest Louisiana into the upper coast of Texas, with the worst winds now coming ashore. Now, what are we left with? Well, when you get up tomorrow, it'll be a weakened hurricane. Right now, 120-mile-an-hour winds, but the movement will take it onshore. And as we all know, as hurricanes move ashore or tropical storms move ashore, they weaken. But the tropical moisture is here. The convergence is here. The uplift is here. And the rain will also be here. That becomes the primary threat from this. The seas will begin to recede tomorrow. The bayous will drain. The rivers will be in flood for a while. But what we'll be left with, as Jim Cantori just told us before, heavy rain. Flood watches are in effect from Houston all the way up into Arkansas. Shreveport, same story. Tyler, Texas. So let's be heads up for that. The weather is fair here in northeast Texas tonight. It's rough here. Tomorrow, flip-flop. Get ready for flooding inland. Hillary?
Thanks, Dave. Check out some of these waves crashing on Galveston, Texas. Offshore winds blowing at a steady 40 to 50 miles per hour, causing water to pile up on the bay side by 4 to 5 feet. Stay with us as we track Rita.
Rita, moving closer to landfall. The Weather Channel brings you meteorologists live from the path of this dangerous storm.
We'll try to hold out here. Oh, that one hurt.
Plus, experienced weather experts and hurricane hunters telling you what's happening, why it's happening, and what's next. And our exclusive high-red technology gives you current conditions not available on any other network. Plus, get updated maps and projected paths on weather.com. In-depth 24/7 coverage and analysis from the Weather Channel. Hurricane Central. Rita coverage now continues on a special edition of Overnight Outlook.
Hurricane Rita is coming on shore, and how's this for an ironic shot? You know, in a night of heavy rain, gusty winds, wind, and water blowing around, a fire breaks out, inundating several buildings here in Galveston, Texas.
We're in the middle of a long night in Texas and Louisiana, whipping winds taking their toll on buildings, trees, and power lines. Hi, everybody. We're under storm alert here at the Weather Channel. I'm Hillary Andrews.
I'm Dave Schwartz. Thanks for helping us burn the midnight oil here tonight. This is Hurricane Central, and Hurricane Rita is wide awake and roaring ashore tonight.
Yeah, unfortunately, heading towards Holly Beach. That is touching off a concern for tornadoes. Tornado watches in those red etched areas. That means tornadoes a possibility right through 6 a.m. But we're most concerned right now with Cameron, Calcasieu, Jefferson, Davis Parish, also Orange and Jefferson counties in Texas. So watch out for these areas, the eye wall just approaching them. And of course, we just kind of blanket the area. The National Hurricane Center, the National Weather Service blankets the area with these tornado watches and warnings, just because we usually see tornadoes in that right front quadrant.
Now we want to show you what it looks like out there. Some of Rita's worst impacts being felt in Louisiana, as we just found out.
Yeah, our own Jeff Morrow has been enduring it in Sulphur, Louisiana. He takes us through the night.
The time, 11:20 p.m. on Friday night as Hurricane Rita slams into the northeast Texas and southwest Louisiana Gulf coastal areas. Here in Sulphur, we're getting some tremendous wind gusts now as that eye draws ever closer. Conservatively, I'd be estimating the winds here at up around 60 and 70 miles an hour, maybe a little bit higher in some of the gusts. 11:51 Central Time here in Sulphur, Louisiana. Rain still coming down in sheets. Not quite as windy right this moment, but the wind comes and goes in big gusts, and then we just get continuous rain. Again, flooding is going to turn out to be a pretty big issue here. Of course, south of us in Cameron Parish, that's where the storm surge is going to be the worst. That's going to be in the next hour or two. And where we are here in Calcasieu Parish, the flooding is coming from the skies. We're talking about heavy rain flooding because it is just torrential tropical downpours here so far. Again, the wind backing off just a bit, but as that eye gets closer over the next hour or two, we expect it to get a heck of a lot worse, and that wind will start to shift around here as well. It is 1:05 local time. The eye of Rita is coming ashore one parish south of us in Cameron Parish. Here in Calcasieu, it is absolutely the worst we have seen, no doubt about it. Conditions continually going downhill this evening. Winds sustained at about 60 to 65 miles an hour with hurricane force gusts probably up around 80 or 85 miles an hour at the present time. Again, some trees are starting to snap here a little bit, and the power has just gone out at the last hotel. Looks like it's starting to come back. Maybe I can come over here and show you. If you look up into that light there, we still have a little bit of power. You can see the wind kind of whipping past it there. Again, that is the sustained wind. I don't think I could stand if I were standing over in that unexposed area, probably up to about 65 miles an hour sustained. The power fluctuating in our area. It comes on and off. Everywhere else in the town of Sulphur, it's been out for hours. Just torrential rains. It's kind of scary because you hear things crashing in the dark and you hear all these sounds, but you don't know what is happening around you because it's pitch black in most areas.
Probably not.
Thanks a lot, Jeff. And of course, we've had trouble getting signals in just because of the wind, the rain. It's hard to keep a satellite dish up. You can imagine. Right now, we're awaiting landfall right around Holly Beach in Louisiana. Unfortunately, this is not going to move very fast, very far. Saturday evening, we still expect it to be right over the Sabine River. Now, Rita will probably be downgraded at that time. To what point? Not sure. But by Sunday, not even making it out of Louisiana. Sunday evening, just barely making it into parts of Arkansas. So with all this time, we're going to see a lot of rain, locally up to 20 inches. So you can definitely expect flooding around the Sabine River, the Sabine Pass. We're also looking at water level rise. The worst of the worst right over here, Lake Charles, all the way over towards just shy of Galveston. Keep in mind, Galveston seeing those offshore winds and the steady offshore winds of 40, 50 miles per hour have really piled up water on the bayside. We're talking about 4 to foot high storm surge, and that's on the bay side. So once those winds subside, you can expect it on the other side. So we're looking for a storm surge even in hours to come. Elevation not looking good. Cameron to Port Arthur, 0 to 5 feet above sea level. You're getting a little safer as you get towards Lake Charles and Beaumont, 10 to 20 feet. But even Beaumont experiencing all these horrible winds. We've seen winds in Cameron, 111 miles per hour. In Beaumont, we've lost power. Mike Bettis was saying that if the power's out, generator power only in the hospitals. Send it over to Dave.
Thanks, Hillary. Well, we hope we don't need it, but FEMA has pre-positioned 4 days of relief supplies for Hurricane Rita's recovery. In the state of Texas, they have on standby 45 truckloads of water, 45 truckloads of ice, and 25 truckloads of meals. Hurricane Rita making landfall tonight in southwest Louisiana. The eye wall approaching Orange, Texas. And Port Arthur, you're in the eye wall. Storm surge, heavy rain, damaging winds, power outages, all a part of Hurricane Rita as it moves on shore. The center of the circulation coming on shore in Cameron Parish, southwest Louisiana. Houston gets off easy, but still there'll be power outages tonight. And in New Orleans, especially on the west side of town, flooding rains could cause more problems.
And of course, cities as far away as Baton Rouge and New Orleans seeing the squalls make their way through. Baton Rouge earlier tonight actually had a tornado report.
The impact from Hurricane Rita has already spread inland.
And meteorologist Janine Albert has this report from Sulphur, Louisiana.
So close now to the landfall of Hurricane Rita. Right now we're in Sulphur, Louisiana. It's just west of Lake Charles and far enough inland where we are not going to be threatened by storm surge if that storm hits to our west and we're on that eastern side of the hurricane. Right now we're being threatened by strong winds and heavy rain. I know you can't tell that from where I'm standing because I'm sheltered by a very large concrete hotel. We did that purposely. Let me show you what happens when I walk back here. I'm going to walk back here into the northeast wind. that is driving right now with gusts up to about 75 miles an hour. We have seen some hurricane force gusts so far, but winds have been sustained closer to 40 to 50 miles an hour so far. Now, they come in spurts. Sometimes that rain comes in and it drives against you. And I told Jeff Morrow earlier, it almost feels like the contact lenses in my eyes are going to be wiped right out from that rain. Back here, you can see how, all of the brush rocking. Remember, we're in Louisiana, so you're not going to see palm trees blowing in the breeze, but you can see all the brush certainly taking a pounding tonight. Now, all around me, what we are starting to notice is power is going out. To my south, I still see some lights, but as I look in the northern direction, absolutely black. You can't see a thing at all. The power is starting to go out. We know that because the transformers are blowing. You see basically this green flash of light in the sky. And you know that this area, Lake Charles, southwest Louisiana, there will be almost 90 to 100% power outage when this thing is over as the eye gets very close. The wind damage we also expect to be very extensive, especially if we're on that eastern eye wall. Anywhere in the eye wall, we're going to see sustained winds at hurricane force and greater. So tomorrow morning, we expect to wake up to a lot of wind damage, flooding also. And again, it'll be dark because we expect this area will be without power. Reporting from Sulphur, Louisiana, I'm meteorologist Janine Albert.
Thanks, Janine. And of course, Sulphur, Lake Charles, Beaumont, probably seeing the worst of the worst. And one meteorologist here at the Weather Channel actually compared the conditions wind-wise that Lake Charles and Sulphur are seeing right now to those of Slidell and Chalmette during Katrina.
And Hurricane Rita is crashing onto the Gulf Coast this morning, doing all of that. And it will have a major impact inland as well.
ABC's Jim Weeder shows us how people along the Gulf Coast were scrambling to get to safety.
Hurricane Rita churned the waters along the Gulf Coast, making her presence felt from Galveston to New Orleans. The powerful hurricane has the potential to cause extensive flooding and damage.
Trees will fall, power will be out, waters will rise. And don't wait, don't go outside to see what's happening.
More than 2.5 million people in Texas were relocated out of Rita's path. Parts of Houston are deserted. Highways out of the city are now empty. Some motorists are still stranded after their cars ran out of gas.
All these poor people are sitting on the side of the road, especially with the ones with little kids, and just no help.
Other residents refuse to leave, willing to take their chances with Rita.
I'm going to stick around, and I'm not scared.
At the airport, the sick and elderly were airlifted on military transport planes to shelters inside Texas and Oklahoma. Some elderly patients from a Houston nursing home never made it to safety. Their bus was engulfed in flames, killing 24 of the 45 people on board. In New Orleans, heavy rains breached already weakened levees, causing new flooding in a section of the city that had just been pumped dry of Katrina's floodwaters.
That was Jim Weeder from ABC in southern Louisiana. Now here's meteorologist.
Rita coverage now continues on a special edition of Overnight Outlook.
Winds so strong they almost seem to shred roofs and siding from some businesses.
That's the situation as Hurricane Rita roars ashore on the western Gulf Coast. We are in storm alert here at the Weather Channel. I'm Nick Walker.
And I'm Kim Perez. Thanks for joining us. Well, Hurricane Rita made landfall within the last hour along the Louisiana Gulf Coast. And just look at what it did inland as it approached. A transformer blew in Sulphur, Louisiana. That's northeast of where the storm came ashore.
And on the western edge of the storm front, flames lit the night sky in Galveston. Fire ripped through 3 buildings in the historic Strand district. Officials report that a downed power pole may have fallen against one of the buildings and caught fire. Winds from Rita whipped the blaze. Now, this is what Rita looks like right now. It remains a Category 3 storm with winds of 120 miles an hour. And these are the 3 biggest dangers that Rita poses right now and throughout the morning. Torrential rain and the flooding it can bring, the threat of tornadoes, and damaging winds. We're continuing to monitor this. Let's get the latest now. The statistics from Kim.
And currently the winds are still 120 miles per hour around that center. But again, as it's moving on shore, we should start to see a weakening trend. It's moving northwest at 12. The pressure is 937 millibars. That should also start to come up. And right now the center is 10 miles south-southeast of Sabine Pass here into Texas. Let's check in on some of the wave action we have seen. How about 20-foot waves? There's some of the buoys that have been reporting in the area. And again, especially here, right where that northern eye wall came ashore, the biggest waves. And again, 20-foot waves and possibly even a surge of 20 feet here. Nick?
Well, one of those braving the storm while we slept, meteorologist Janine Albert. She's in Sulphur, Louisiana, and this was the situation early this morning as winds from Rita swept across the city.
Are getting stronger. They're blowing out of the north-northeast. The gusts are over 70 miles per hour. We're estimating that because at this point, the official recording spot, which is at Lake Charles Airport, as you know, at this time and when a hurricane is about to make landfall, a lot of these recording stations stop reporting because the wind gets too strong and just knocks them out of commission. And that's the situation in Lake Charles. The last wind gust official recording we had was 71 miles an hour about 2 hours ago, and the winds have become stronger since then. Impossible to estimate just how much rain has fallen because it's coming in horizontally, but it's been pouring down rain at the rate of about 2 inches per hour for many hours now. So I'd say 3-4 inches at least across this area. And you can see as we shot some video earlier in the Sulphur Lake Charles area, the signs have been blowing around. This is just a little taste of what is coming later on because, again, the winds are expected to get much stronger. We are going to be in, we think, the eastern eye or very close to it. And the eye wall, of course, is the strongest part of the storm in terms of the winds. And also the eastern side of the eye is where we are going to see the highest storm surge. Now, where we are in Sulphur, we're pretty far inland, so we're not worried about storm surge, and our elevation is fine here. We're safe in terms of storm surge. But coastal Louisiana is going to take a big hit with a large surge. Also want to mention, we understand power is out to a good portion of Lake Charles tonight. Once again, that's another thing that's very hard for us to confirm because we're at the point where it's really unsafe for us to get in our car and go survey damage and check things out. We're at the point where we just need to stay put and keep bringing you reports. I'm meteorologist Janine Albert. Back to you in the studio.
Well, the Texas coast is feeling and reeling from the impact of Rita as well.
So although it was a long, slow, and painful evacuation for many in Texas, leaving was a very wise thing to do. Our own Jim Cantori has been in Houston throughout the night, and earlier this morning he showed us what people had to endure to get to safety.
And good evening from Houston, Texas tonight, where the city again shut down for the last couple of days. Hard to believe it's a Friday night in Houston, and there aren't any souls to be found out here on the streets tonight, which is exactly the way we want it. Even though the wind and the rain is not bad yet, it certainly could be as we go through the overnight hours. But perhaps the worst effects, if you will, from Rita have already occurred, and that was with the evacuation. Let me show you some pictures here. Cars stranded on the sides of roads, pretty much running out of gas as a result of being on the road for some 18 to, in some cases we heard, up to 48 hours here. And when people tried to get gas, they couldn't because gas stations had run out. Of course, the typical run on gas when you try and get 2 million people out of a city, that is exactly what's going to occur. Today, slowly but surely, tankers came to fill some of those cars on the interstates, but in most cases, those cars were abandoned. But the good news is some people were brought in either by bus or people that they didn't even know, perfect strangers, willing to pick them up and get them out of harm's way before Rita could make landfall. As big as this evacuation was, and as heartbreaking and as mind-boggling as it was for so many people, you had to admit it went off pretty well. Let's go ahead and hear from a lady now who gives us an idea of what she went through during this evacuation process.
We ran out of gas. We didn't have no water. I mean, I was just through. I said, we're just going to go back to Texas City. So we went back to Texas City last night. And then I heard the weather news again, and then they got me more scared. So we head out to Houston. We just got back, with my friend's house. And now they're telling us that the highway is kind of clear. So we're going to try to see if we can head out to Dallas.
So after all of this, it appears that Houston will not deal with the brunt of this initial part of the storm. However, there is still a flood threat in this area should Rita decide to come back this way. I'm Jim Cantori in downtown Houston. Back to you.
Now, what can we expect as Rita pushes inland? It looks like landfall occurred at 2:30 between Sabine Pass and Johnson's Bayou, Louisiana. Officially, the impacts will continue across a large area as Rita spreads inland.
Well, New Orleans is coping with one problem from Rita. Or more ahead? Well, we've got the latest.
And we'll keep you updated on the torrential rain and damaging winds that continue to press inland.
It's Saturday, September 24th, and we are in storm alert this morning as we track Hurricane Rita. Rita has proven that it's a force to be reckoned with. Look at how Rita's vicious winds ripped this gas station apart, even knocking over huge fuel pumps. We'll take you live to where the action is happening.
And here in Beaumont, Texas, our worst nightmares have been realized. Winds over 100 miles an hour and now flooding rain has put us on an island here in Beaumont. I'm Mike Bettis. I have a live report next.
You are tuned into Hurricane Central as we track Hurricane Rita's every move. Good morning, I'm Bill Keneally.
And I'm Kelly Cass. While a lot of folks were sleeping, Hurricane Rita was roaring ashore and coming in with a vengeance as a powerful Category 3 hurricane. Just take a look at these scenes from Port Arthur, Texas. Rita really went to work on this Dairy Queen, literally ripping it to shreds from Hurricane Rita's ferocious winds. We've had reports of wind gusts as high as 105 miles an hour in Beaumont, Texas, and 112 miles an hour in Cameron, Louisiana, that before the wind instrument was knocked over.
And Kelly, down the coast, a powerful wind and a firefighter's worst enemy. Look at the flames here shooting out of these buildings on Galveston Island. 3 structures catching fire. Our own Weather Channel crew were there even before firefighters arrived. The cause of that blaze is not known, but we're told that a power pole was leaning on one of the structures. Let's get a look now at what's going on the radar, and I want to show you what's happening here in western Louisiana and Texas. We have tornado warnings in Texas, Hardin County, Tyler County, Jasper, Newton County, all under tornado warnings. And in Louisiana, Beauregard, Allen Parish, and Vernon Parish, along with St. Mary Parish as well, all under tornado warnings. All these cells generally are racing northward at speeds of 25 to 40 miles per hour. Kelly?
And the weather, you can see where the system is right now. It's still packing winds of 120 miles an hour as of the latest advisory at 4 a.m. Central. We should be getting in new information to have a better fix of the system. But right now it appears it's more over eastern Texas than over western Louisiana. It is still moving towards the northwest at 12 miles an hour, but we do expect it to slow down and cause very heavy rain. A lot of flooding rain, unfortunately, for quite a few states out there. Well, the Weather Channel is covering Hurricane Rita from all possible sides with a team of experienced meteorologists stationed along the Gulf Coast. Meteorologist Janine Alberts has really been taking a beating overnight. She joins us live from Sulphur, Louisiana. Stephanie Abrams weathered the storm in Galveston, and our storm tracker Jim Cantori dodged the bullet. He's live this morning in Houston. We've also had reports from meteorologist Mike Bettis. He's standing by in Beaumont. But we want to begin with Mike rather. And there you are, Mike. Looks like the winds are not quite as bad right now. How's the rainfall been?
Oh, the rain has been relentless for us. The wind has let up significantly, I'd say, in the last hour and a half or so. We were out here at the height of that. It was awful. The rain, we've had over 8 inches of rain. And when we came into town, we certainly decided as a crew where's going to be the safest place for us to be in Beaumont. We decided on St. Elizabeth Hospital. We were told, hey, this is about as high as you can get. And look what's happened to us now. I don't know if you can see this or not, but right behind us is 14th Street. Basically, we're surrounded by water at this point. We won't be able to get out of here for some time because it's a moat all the way around the hospital at this point. So we're stranded right here on an island, basically, in Beaumont, Texas. And that's what over 8 inches of rain will do for you. And the drainage just can't keep up with rain like that. And that wind has been violent as well. We've had pieces of the roof of the hotel that have ripped off, corrugated metal pieces. It really has been a nasty scene here through the overnight. The height of that storm coming in about 2 hours ago. At that time, we had a wind gust at 105 miles an hour here in Beaumont. And keep in mind, folks, we're a good 30-plus miles from the coastline, so the effects coming well inland as well. And you can imagine that, obviously, that's going to knock out power. All power was out last night, and it hasn't come back on. The hospital here is operating on generator power right now. And so they're kind of skeleton at this point. There's no water pressure for them here at the hospital either. And they have over 100 patients here. So it's a pretty dire situation. And I'll tell you what, the winds couldn't have been any more violent than they were about 2 hours ago, that's for sure. We had some very violent winds as you head eastbound on I-10 from Beaumont. Eventually, you make your way into Sulphur, Louisiana. That's where Janine Albert is right now. And Janine, I know you got absolutely hammered over there through the overnight. What are conditions for you like right now?
Mike, still a strong south wind. It's knocking me off balance at times, so I'm estimating at about 60-mile-an-hour gusts still in this area, keeping in mind that the eye is not far from here. We got the eastern part of the eye wall, so that's typically the most intense part. Our winds quickly shifted from kind of an east-northeast direction real fast to a south, and now the wind is coming at me from the south. And you can see behind me, I just want to show you, this very large tree, the whole time that the winds were out of the north and east, was standing completely upright. And then all of a sudden, when the wind switched around and the eye made landfall, this tree started bending over. There are many like it in this area that are completely blown over. We did take a brief tour of just the immediate area before sunrise. That's the best we can do because it's just not safe to really venture out in this wind and rain and dark. The entire city of Lake Charles and Sulphur without power this morning, as is much of southwest Louisiana. What we saw, corrugated metal everywhere and a lot of flooding, mostly secondary roads. The main roads appear to be okay, but a lot of debris and trees even covering roadways. We also got a preliminary report that much of the city of Lake Charles downtown is underwater this morning. So Bill and Kelly, when the sun rises here in an hour, it may be safer for us to get around and just kind of see exactly what damage this hurricane landfall so close to us caused.
And Janine, I know you're out there on I-10 west of downtown Lake Charles, and the area is very, very flat, very, very low. Any reports of any storm surge making it up to the interstate?
No, not up to the interstate. But again, there are a lot of inlets, just like Mobile Bay and Pensacola Bay. We have a lot of those inlets here. We did get reports that the storm surge could have been estimated anywhere between 15 and 20 feet in this area. Down in Galveston, they didn't have to worry about the storm surge because they were on the western side of the storm relative to landfall. But Stephanie Abrams was there. A lot of other problems, though, fires, floods.
That's right, Janine, and as a matter of fact, we've also seen some power lines down, and as you were mentioning, out of power. We are out of power here as well. It's actually a little bit spotty, as a matter of fact, on Galveston Island. You go for a block, you see that the street lights are on, and then it's dark for several blocks. And then you see one block where there's some lights on, and then it's dark for several blocks. So we are seeing spotty power outages here. Again, street lights have been knocked down, also some power lines, obviously. And where the west end of the island, where there's no seawall, we have seen some flooding, but nothing too significant, of course, relative to where Janine is. Really not a whole lot of flooding. Now, there's also small trees down and barricades and trash cans. That's basically what we are seeing around town. And small trees blown over. That's the basic situation here. The highest wind gust we got was 62 miles per hour. That was before the reporting station stopped reporting. As everyone keeps mentioning, of course, these reporting stations, they get knocked out. So we could have seen gusts higher than that, but right now we are seeing the wind sustained around 20 miles per hour, according to my anemometer. And I went and took a wind observation on the beach, and I got a gust up to 29 miles per hour, so still pretty gusty, enough to kind of jolt you. And as everyone's been mentioning, those winds are shifting around, and we're getting more of a west wind. And with that said, Bill and Kelly, that water never came ashore here on the Gulf side of the island. It continues to be pushed out. I was just down at the beach, and you can still walk several hundred yards out.
Yeah, Stephanie, I understand the surge was actually from the bay, not from the Gulf. But what can you tell us? What do you know about the fires out there?
Well, that one fire, that house fire, we still don't have a whole lot of information. We've been doing our best to get information, but as you can imagine, it's tough in these types of situations. There was a power pole that was down. We cannot confirm that that is what caused the fire. Now, being in these storms, you see transformers blow as well, and maybe a transformer caused that problem, maybe there was a lightning strike, or maybe it was the power line. We do not know at this hour, but it was a raging fire, and you can just imagine the wind blowing it around. I have to tell you, we were standing here thinking, man, what is on fire? It smells terrible. Smoke filled the sky here, and I actually called one of our producers who was out shooting some video, and I said, do you know where the fire is? He said, we're right here. It's unbelievable. They couldn't get too close, obviously, because they were worried about those winds shifting, but they were there. And unfortunately, that house was actually built in 1905 after the hurricane of 1900 that struck Galveston. So very sad to see that something that was built so long ago has been destroyed. And as a matter of fact, Bill and Kelly, the hotel that we're at right now was actually built after the hurricane as well, completed in 1911 to try to boost the economy after, of course, that hurricane devastated Galveston.
Did you say you lost power at your hotel, Steph, or are you okay there?
We did lose power at our hotel, but again, I walked out the door and I could see some lights off in the distance, so it's definitely spotty here on the island.
All right, Steph, thank you very much. We'll check back with you a little bit later.
Meanwhile, Kelly, power outages and flooding and wind damage, all big issues as we see Hurricane Rita continue that relentless race across parts of western Louisiana and Texas. ABC's Hari Saravasan is live this morning in New Orleans. And Hari, we saw those levees flooding and breaking yesterday. What's the situation out there this morning?
Good morning, Bill. It hasn't gotten much better. We've seen some live pictures of it from earlier this morning as well as last night. Basically, the water keeps pouring over and through some of the breaches in the levees that were repaired earlier. Now, none of the major ones, the large one that was the 17th Street Canal, we're hearing that that one's fine. London Street Canal was also fine. But down in the 9th Ward, one of the hardest hit areas, that was really where you saw a lot of these people being plucked off their roofs, that's the area that's been hit again. The area that they had patched up along the industrial canal there, the wind that was driving all that water over has just kind of taken over again, and that water has basically come back into that area, probably 3-4 feet in some places.
All right, Hari, again, the rain continues to be an issue down there. Are you seeing a lot of rain this hour? I know that big feeder band continues to come ashore.
That's right. We see little squalls every once in a while. It just, you're very familiar with it. I'm sure it's probably on your radar. Basically, it pours for about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. But what we do have consistently, and you can see me kind of trying to fight it here, is a very strong wind that is coming from just about every direction. But it seems to come around the building for us and hit us straight in the back. There are still a lot of signs in all sorts of disarray in New Orleans, billboards and so forth, and we're actually keeping an eye on one that's a billboard on an adjacent building, and you can hear the aluminum siding being ripped off very slowly.
All right, Hari, thank you very much. As you know, there's also that tornado threat as well, so get ready to seek shelter. We've had a lot of tornado warnings in south central Louisiana this morning.
It's good seeing power up behind them, too.
Yeah, it looks like some lights are on out there. Our storm alert coverage of Hurricane Rita continues now from Houston.
And Kelly, we have our storm tracker, Jim Cantori, live joining us this morning in the downtown of Houston. I know, Jim, that the Intercontinental Airport had a wind gust peaking out in the low 60s. How have you guys felt downtown there, and how is the downtown held up?
Yeah, pretty well, guys. We're doing good here. A lot of the power outages that we hear, about 500,000, believe it or not, for the Metro Houston area, not bad, but they're still pretty much sporadic. On the east side, Bill and Kel, where the bands have come on in, and, you know, we're not out of this. We're going to see these bands unravel from this hurricane and actually head this way. So we could actually get some of our worst wind gusts and heavy rain as these bands unravel today. So don't be fooled by that. We're part of this fire situation, believe it or not. Stephanie talked about the fire in Galveston. We've actually got some fires of our own. We had one down in Clear Lake at an apartment complex, and also in Pasadena there have been reports of a fire. I want to show you some pictures in and around Houston that we took this morning, as you can see with the wind, and I'll kind of give you more details here. Again, this Pasadena fire that we have, which is south and east of me, is at a dollar store, a family dollar store, which is burned down and a side of that building is collapsed. Now that fire has moved to an auto parts store next, which is very, very close to it. And you got to think with the power poles that are live, and certainly the sporadic nature of the power outages, that some of these poles, all they need to do as long as they're live is start touching some of these wood buildings, and they can go up. And then, of course, you've got the winds, 50, 60 miles an hour, fanning some of the flames here. Bill and Kel, no obs right now out of Hobby and Ellington airports. Be interesting to see what kind of winds that we have there. And we have heard reports out of Lake Charles that a terminal in Lake Charles Airport has sustained major damage there, and also an overpass in Lake Charles has collapsed. So, again, as we continue to get sketchy reports in with the darkness, we'll fill you in. But for the most part, obviously, until first light, we can't be confirming anything here. Radar, you can see what's going on. Again, as I mentioned, as this hurricane comes inland, its energy will unravel from the center outward. That, of course, does include Houston. It includes where Harry is in New Orleans and areas to the north. There will be tremendous tremendous tree damage in the piney woods of East Texas and also into northwest Louisiana, north of Lake Charles. So we're not out of the woods with the tree damage there. We're still going to have big gusts and probably power outages heading up that way as well. But as these bands unravel, again, expect some heavy rain and more sporadic power outages here in the Houston metro area. Guys, obviously we dodged a bullet in through here, and hopefully by time all is said and done, the worst nightmare in Houston from this storm will be from the evacuation process and the 24 to 48 hours that some people have had to spend in their cars. Close to 3 million at that. Back to you.
Well, Jim, quick question for you. I know back in '83 with Alicia, we had a lot of windows blown out of some of those high-rise buildings. Have you seen any of that there in Houston?
We have not seen anything like that, Kel. Of course, we were on the east side of the storm then, and you had a lot of rocks that sat and held the tar paper down on some of these rooftops, and it was really the rocks that got blown off those roofs and shattered those windows. So nothing of the sort we've seen on our drive over here, which was about 10 or 12 blocks. A few tree limbs, maybe very, very small tree limbs and leaves, and really that has been just about it. So again, like I said, we have dodged one here in Houston for now. Now, some of the computer models bringing the storm up and then back down this way, we're going to have to wait and see how that affects Houston, certainly in the long run. But all in all, again, rain, at times quick heavy shower. It moves through, winds gusting 30 miles an hour, I would estimate right now in the downtown area. Back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Jim. We'll check back with you a little bit later.
You bet.
Okay, Kelly, now we have our severe weather expert, Dr. Forbes, is in. And again, Jim talked about the unraveling of these bands of rain with the heating in the daytime, Greg. Are you seeing that now? I know the Storm Prediction Center has adjusted that tornado watch farther north.
That's right, Bill. It is going to be a pretty active afternoon, expanding northward across Mississippi. We also have damaging winds right now. Let's take a look. Here, there's a possibility of embedded tornadoes, certainly still hurricane force, tornado force winds in this area north of Beaumont, Port Arthur. That's over around Jasper, Texas, over then into DeRidder and Fort Polk, Louisiana. Jasper and Newton and Tyler counties in Texas, Beauregard, Vernon, and Allen parishes in Louisiana have that damaging wind and possible tornado threat. Then we have two rain bands over around Morgan City. This is the area that goes around Morgan City, Lafayette, Louisiana. There is a tornado warning there, St. Mary Parish, around the Franklin area, moving north to east of Jeanneret. And then there's a little convergence line, a wind shift line goes north of New Orleans. I'm worried about possible tornadoes in the next few hours developing in this area from Macomb, Mississippi and Liberty, Mississippi down into areas east of Baton Rouge as well. Here is that tornado threat then during the day today across the areas all in red. We may have storms develop tornadoes even as far as southwest portions of Mississippi. Tomorrow that threat could spread up even into the Memphis area, perhaps up into Nashville as well. And of course there's torrential rain falling with this. Some of those rain bands have 2 to 4 inches of rain per hour, and so we're going to get some places across extreme East Texas, Louisiana, a little bit of West Mississippi that could get 8, 12, perhaps 16, maybe even 20 inches if this storm totally stalls out. That means, of course, we're going to get some massive flooding in a number of locations, so don't drive through any flooded roadways. Bill, Kelly?
Okay, Greg, thanks a lot. Again, another very active day and a lot farther north, it looks like.
Yeah, we want to remind everybody, too, that here at the Weather Channel on Hurricane Central, we will be commercial-free for the next couple of hours to bring you the very latest on Rita's impacts. Of course, the center of Hurricane Rita made landfall at 2:30 Central Time this morning on the extreme southwest coast of Louisiana, right between Sabine Pass and Johnson's Bayou.
And Kelly, it looks like now the actual center may be actually across the river there in extreme southeastern Texas. And when that sun does come up, we'll really see the full extent of all that damage.
Right now, let's show you some pictures from Sulphur, Louisiana. And of course, our Jeff Morrow has been there all night and all this morning. And you can see that wind just whipping up the rain and causing it to go sideways. And yeah, we're very concerned that there could have been a lot of damage out there, perhaps catastrophic in some instances with that surge. And again, as daylight dawns, we'll be able to see some of that. Now on to Galveston. Before it was ripped apart, that sign used to say no swimming. Just watch how Hurricane Rita churned up wicked waves here in the Gulf. And we're not done with this yet. We still have lots of heavy rain in store. And also, as Greg mentioned, we've got the threat of tornadoes, too, especially on the east side of where the center made landfall.
And, Kelly, here are the latest winds in the area. Houston, as Jim said, in the mid-30 range. Port Arthur at 45. And, by the way, we had peak winds there up about 105 miles per hour a couple of hours ago, as Mike Bettis has reported. Lake Charles, thankfully, in a bit of an eye now, or a lull. Lafayette, though, a streaming southeast wind and that's gusting at times to about 25 to 40 miles per hour. I want to show you one more time on the radar scope here, a quick check on where it's all headed, and there's that track inland. It looks like, again, the core just to the west of the Sabine River, just north of Port Arthur, Texas.
And we want to go back to Sulphur, Louisiana, because it looks like Janine Alberts may be on the eastern side of the eye itself, right there in the center of the storm. And Janine, what are you experiencing there now?
Well, the strongest winds, Kelly, have already passed. I think we've seen the strongest sustained winds that we're going to have here. But gusty winds out of the south right now, anywhere between 50 and 60 miles an hour. But you can see by the fact that I have my hood off finally that the heavy, drenching, pouring down rain is for the moment over. There's a little bit of light rain, and because it's so fine, it's really stinging as it's driven by the south wind. The story really here has been so far the wind damage, the power outages, and I think once sunrise hits in about 45 minutes and we're able to kind of get around and see what's going on in and through Sulphur and nearby Lake Charles, we understand there will be a lot of storm surge damage near the coast and coming up Calcasieu Lake. So we'll be looking for that in Lake Charles. Also, reports of wind damage. We estimate winds were at about 105 miles an hour at the peak. Now, those are gusts, but enough to knock down large trees. We also got preliminary reports that the regional airport here in Lake Charles had a terminal completely collapsed. And just as we drove up the road one block just to see what was going on near Interstate 10, a lot of flooding. Secondary roadways absolutely flooded, and many, many awnings and large metal structures from gas stations, hotel signs, other business signs are down. So obviously it's going to be very hazardous to be out. That's why there is a curfew in effect. I imagine after sunrise at 7:02 local time here, we will see law enforcement officers out and about assessing the damage and making sure that everybody is okay. Now, the shelters were full across this area. Everybody was prepared for the storm, as they were in the Houston-Galveston area. Most people evacuated. Let's go down now to Galveston. Stephanie Abrams is there live. Stephanie, you're on the west side of the eye, so you didn't see the storm surge, but the wind damage there and the fires. Incredible video you were showing.
It absolutely was, and what happened was we were standing here, you know, doing live shots, taking you through the storm, and we're all saying, what is on fire? Something smells horrible. And I actually walked up to the street and looked on the street, and I didn't see any fire, and one of our producers, Howard Sappington, was out getting some videos, assessing some damage around the area. And so I said, you know what, you guys, let's call Howard and see if he has seen anything. So I called Howard up on the phone, and basically right when I picked up, I could barely get a word out before he said, we're at this incredible fire. 3 buildings were burning. They said that the fire rescue were not there, that they got there before the law enforcement, and the police eventually showed up. And it was just amazing to see the wind whipping this fire around. I mean, of course, you don't think hurricane and fire, those two don't usually go together because you're usually getting very heavy rain. And we did get rain here, but of course not enough to stop that fire from just blazing out of control. And the wind would just whip the fire all around the building. You could see pieces flying out into the street, and it was a dangerous situation. So of course you wanted to make sure that you weren't near that fire, so they pulled back and they came back, and everyone was safe, in our crew at least, and we hope that everyone was safe as well if anyone was in and around that fire. And Bill and Kelly, the situation as of now, it's still windy, just some very light rain. And the cause of that fire is still unknown. I want to make that a fact. But we do have some down power poles and power lines. And some people are saying that might have caused it. But we really don't have a confirmed answer on that.
And Stephanie, I know your wind had been more of a north wind. Now it's starting to back around more to the northwest, and that's going to pull all that water, Kelly, all the way down across Galveston Bay and maybe on the west end of that island. So any fear of that sound side or a bayside flooding being a major issue?
Well, we did think it would be a problem. We also obviously were thinking about those winds, and they were saying there could be a surge of 4 to 7 feet. We did check that out, the situation on the bay side of the island, but we did not see any surge at the moment. But that could change, Bill, as you were talking about the winds backing around. And I actually have noticed those winds moving around here from last night into this morning. And we'll continue to let you know and keep you updated if we do see a rise in water on the bay side of the island. Now, speaking of a rise in water, let's head to my north, where Mike Bettis, from what I hear, you're basically surrounded by water at this hour.
We're in dire straits at this moment, Stephanie. We thought that flooding was going to be the biggest problem. It is the biggest problem in Beaumont. If you look behind me here, this is 14th Street. This it comes around the hospital here. It's about thigh high out there, so we can't get out. It's a moat, basically. We've been watching to see if the water is going to rise anymore. It can only come about another 3 feet, and we're done, and we're underwater. Been watching this manhole cover right here, and it hasn't come up much farther since we've been watching it the past, say, hour or so, because the rain actually has let up a little bit. It's just a real light rain at this point, but we still have plenty of the southern part of this storm to go. So if we get more heavy rain, we've already had over 8 inches, it may just add to our problems here. We can't go anywhere, so we're stuck in this particular spot. I wish we could get out there and shoot some video for you this morning and show you some damage, but at this point, we're kind of hunkered down and forced to be locked down at this particular location. At the height of the storm, it was nasty out here. Certainly the worst of conditions than we could have expected here in Beaumont. Let's take you through the beginning and the height of Rita. It's midnight right now in Beaumont. We've had steady rain and high winds throughout the evening hours. Those winds, what have they done? Well, they've ripped apart some billboards, a lot of sporadic power outages behind me, a lot of black out there. We anticipate power potentially going out in all of Beaumont tonight. If you don't have a generator, you're out of luck. It is 2 a.m. and Rita's now rolling on shore. High winds throughout this event, and that has meant transformers have been blowing all around us. Some of the street lights still remain powered up at this time, but there's been very heavy rain. We're taking on water in many of the intersections. Some of these roadways will be rivers come morning. It is 3 a.m. We're at the height of what Rita has been able to dish out rolling on shore. As we thought might happen, power is completely out in Beaumont, Texas right now. And with those high winds and the heavy rain, we've got some scattered, strewn debris all across the area. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. This is the closest that the center of circulation has come to us here in Beaumont. The wind is howling, the rain is horizontal, and we've seen debris and heard debris fly through the air, and we're hoping that this is the height of the storm and it doesn't get any worse than this. It's 5:35. We're still at the height of Rita. Howling winds, debris litters the streets, but what's dangerous now is the water is rapidly rising behind us. And so we've had high water here in Beaumont. We've had high winds. Highest wind report here in Beaumont at 105 miles an hour. You work your way southward toward Port Arthur. Highest wind report we've had there, 116 miles an hour. That's Category 3 winds. Incredible stuff here in southeast Texas. Let's work our way farther westward. We're going to head to the big city of Houston, Texas. Jim Cantori is there. Jim, we've been hit rough here, but your winds have actually been pretty good there as well, huh?
Yeah, occasionally, you know, I'll look up and I'll see this little blue or green flash, and, you know, all it takes is 50 miles an hour, and you can easily get some power outages, get those transformers blow, and we are going to continue to see that this morning. Again, a lot of the power from the core of that hurricane will unravel outward into those outer bands, so we could see even some of our higher wind gusts, believe it or not, even after this storm's come ashore. I've seen that in many, many cases, and you're not out of the woods either. Lufkin, you're going to deal with the eye wall that Mike showed us at 5:30. You know, what's left of it, it may not be 105 miles an hour, but all those pine trees, those beautiful pine trees in northeast Texas, you are about to get hammered up in that region. Let me show you in and around the Houston area this morning. We heard from Stephanie, the fire in Galveston. We had a couple of our own down in Clear Lake at an apartment complex, one that is still going on in Pasadena, now at an auto parts store, which started at a Family Dollar store down there. But again, inside the metro area, you can see we're not faring too bad. We don't have any stoplights down. We don't have any signage that's been blown over. Occasionally a tree limb, very small tree limb at that, and a few leaves, but really we fared very well, I think, here in the city. But in the outskirts, that's where we're hearing the power outages, in some cases up toward 500,000. Winds gusting over 50 miles an hour at George Bush, and at Hobby, we have stopped seeing the wind observation there report in, as is the case at Ellington Field as well. So not getting any reports there south and east of where we would get them from George Bush. So, guys, all in all, we've dodged one. No question about it. The big question is people watch us from their evacuation areas that, you know, some 2.5 to 3 million people that have left the city. You kind of wonder what kind of mad dash they're going to make back in through here. I would not advise too many people to come back. A, we don't know where the gas is. We know there's been sporadic delivery of that gas, but we don't have any idea where that is. And you certainly don't want to get caught on the interstate coming back in and not be able to see anyone get out there and help you. So just hold off for a little while. It is going to be a rainy, windy day here in Houston, and perhaps even the worst wind gusts coming in, maybe 60, 70 miles an hour, depending on how strong those bands get. Bill and Kel, back to you.
Yeah, Jim, like you mentioned, 2.5 million people evacuated there. What are local authorities saying as far as anybody being out on the roads? Is there a state of emergency there?
There is a state of emergency, and obviously with that, Kel, comes those fringe issues of please don't go out on the roads, obviously, because we don't want you to get yourself in harm's way where we have to take personnel from a necessary situation like the fire that's going down in Pasadena and bring them to deal with you. So, again, we encourage everyone, they're encouraging everyone to not come back into the city yet for two reasons. A, again, we don't know where the gas is, and B, the biggest problems are going to be perhaps this morning and early this afternoon, as these winds will still cause enough, gust enough, I should say, to cause tree limbs and power lines to come down and sporadic power outages. So that's what we're going to deal with here in Houston. We'll keep you posted right now.
All right, Jim, thank you very much for that live report. We'll be checking back with you throughout the day.
Okay. So again, the bottom line here is the hurricane is ashore. It is now in southeastern areas of Texas, and from here on out, the big impacts will again be with the rainfall, and there will still be damaging wind. We've had reports up in Leesville, Louisiana, winds gusting to 59 miles per hour. That is a good 100 miles inland, by the way. And also from here on out, there will continue to be a storm surge, primarily to the right or to the east of where the landfall did occur.
All right, there's your bottom line on the storm. And of course, as Bill just mentioned, it's a very dangerous storm. And overnight, Hurricane Rita ripped into Louisiana and Texas. I believe we have a look at some trees being knocked over out there. And yeah, unfortunately, a lot of damage. And when daylight dawns, we'll be able to see what's been going on even more.
Overnight, Hurricane Rita ripped on through western Louisiana and southeastern Texas. I want to show you some of the trees here. There you go. There's Port Arthur, Texas. They could not stand up to the might of Rita. The vicious winds gusting at times upwards of 105 to 120 miles per hour.
It is now 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central Time, and we are in storm alert. That means wall-to-wall coverage as we continue to track this very powerful and dangerous Hurricane Rita. By the way, we are commercial-free for the next couple of hours, and thanks for staying with us. I'm Kelly Cass.
And I'm Bill Keneally, and that Hurricane Rita has made a landfall by 2:30 Central Time, but that storm is far from over now. I want to show you the satellite picture of the core of the system now coming through southeastern Texas. And as Jim said, the peripheral effects of the heavy rain evident in the area purple. That's pretty much the back edge of that steady, heavy rain, so it's a little west of I-45, but then it cuts off pretty quickly. And by the way, Mike Bettis mentioned a lull in the action. He's kind of in the decaying eye itself, so that's why he's getting a little respite. And incidentally, the winds in Beaumont, Port Arthur, now southwest, so hopefully that's a better sign as far as cutting the rainfall off. Right now, as Mike said, he's surrounded by water, rainwater that is, all around a hospital there. Still some feeder bands, unfortunately, coming across the greater New Orleans area. The western suburbs, Kenner and Metairie and back to home, have really gotten hit pretty hard. Here's our path now for later on today. A lot of uncertainty here. It will come in. It's got a little head of steam now, but it's going to slow down. Could even stop out there across the Arklatex area. So Shreveport, the rain has just begun. It could be with you well into early next week. Kelly?
Well, you know you can count on the Weather Channel to keep you ahead of the storm, and we have a dedicated team of meteorologists positioned across Texas and Louisiana. Meteorologist Janine Albert is live this morning in Sulphur, Louisiana. Stephanie Abrams braved the storm from Galveston, Texas, and our storm tracker Jim Cantori is standing by live in Houston. And we also have meteorologist Mike Bettis joining us from Beaumont, and we know you all have some amazing stories to tell. But Janine, we want to start with you. I know the eye came ashore just south of you. Explain to us how it felt at the height of the storm.
Well, Kelly, intense wind. Now, we're far enough away from the coast where we didn't see any storm surge. We were never in any threat of storm surge here in Sulphur and in Lake Charles. But what we did see was strong winds and a lot of damage. Now, the power went out hours before the actual eye made landfall. We were in the eastern eye wall. Remember, the eye wall has the most intense winds with it and circulation. At this point on the radar, you'll notice that to our south, there's a little bit of a lull. We're still getting rain, but it's not quite the drenching rain that we had at the time of impact. Actually, you know what? It's been raining for about 12 hours steady. Doppler radar estimates anywhere between 7 and 9 inches of rain in this area. Now, once again, as Jim Cantore was talking about, the local obs in Lake Charles stopped running at about, I think it was 9 o'clock Central Time. So we stopped getting wind gust reports and we stopped getting rainfall reports. But we would estimate between 7 and 9 inches of rain have fallen, and there have been many reports of local flooding. I saw it myself this morning on some secondary roadways. Now, as soon as it's safe to do so, we'll try to get out and about in the parish and show you some of the damage. Like I said, a lot of trees, power lines, what you would expect from a Category 3 storm like Hurricane Ivan. In fact, it reminded me a lot of Ivan because I was in Fort Walton Beach, and it came in overnight in the same way in the dark. That's eerie. That is scary when a hurricane makes landfall at night. You feel a little bit helpless, that's for sure. But thankfully, we'll get some light here in about an hour, and we'll start to assess the damage for you. Right now, where are we tossing it right now?
Janine, we'll take it.
Go back to Bill and Kelly.
Yeah, Janine, thank you so much. We have some breaking news. We've got new tornado warnings in effect. We want to read some of those off to you.
That's right, Kelly. This is pretty much a blanket issuance with that eye wall coming on through, and that is the area southeastern Texas, southwestern Louisiana, about a 7-county or parish area.
Yeah, we're talking about Hardin County, Tyler County in southeastern Texas, Jasper and Newton counties. You need to seek shelter. Hopefully a lot of folks are already in shelter right now because of the hurricane itself. Also a few parishes in southwestern Louisiana.
That's right, Calcasieu Parish and Vernon Parish and Rapides Parish, all under a tornado warning until 7:30. Areas involved here could be Kirbyville and Jasper. Now, I want to mention that Janine is in Calcasieu Parish. It looks like the worst of these cells, though, on the very north end of that parish.
All right, so keep safe out there. And we're going to go now to Mike Bettis. He is in Beaumont, Texas, where, of course, we had that eye making landfall, Mike, and we saw the pictures from earlier. Those winds had to be gusting over 100 miles an hour.
They were. 105 miles an hour, the highest wind gust we've had here in Beaumont. It ramped up really quickly. It went from very little to a lot, and then it's gone right back down to very little again. So it was a real quick peak and then back down. We haven't really had very strong winds over the past, say, hour or so. We haven't had very strong rain either. We're now contending more or less with the southern side of the system as it pushes away from us. If we had any more rain, we'd really be in trouble here, because behind me is 14th Street, which is now completely underwater. We had the heavy rain, that heavy rain producing over 8 inches here in Beaumont, and we knew that some of the streets would flood here. We certainly talked to a lot of people before we made a decision as where exactly in Beaumont we would be, because everyone said the same thing. It's going to flood. At the height of the storm, when you've had the highest winds and the highest rain, it's going to flood in Beaumont. And so we picked a spot that we thought would be safest, and now we're basically stuck at that spot because another 2-3 feet and we'd be in big trouble. But it's kind of stopped at this point. Happy to report, but those winds just absolutely fierce at the height of the storm. 105 in Beaumont, 116 miles an hour as you head south on 69 toward Port Arthur, and 112 miles an hour in Cameron, Louisiana. That is some wicked stuff for sure. And we're now grateful that things are getting much better for us here. And hopefully, as the sun comes up here, we'll be able to assess some of the damage here and let you know what's going on here in Beaumont. But as of right now, dealing with the southern side of this storm and conditions a little bit better than they were, say, even just 2 hours ago. Heading farther south of us, we make our way toward Galveston, an area that's protected by a big is there. Stephanie, we didn't really see the storm surge that maybe initially we thought we might see there. What's the latest on the waves?
Well, the waves have actually calmed down a bit. We did see those waves yesterday, 16, even some 18-foot waves here offshore. And the reason we didn't see that surge is because we were on the west side of the storm. Now, if this storm came in south of us, we would have had an east wind. What does that mean, an east wind? That means the winds come from the east. Guess what? The Gulf of Mexico is off to our east. So that east wind would have pushed all that water offshore, but that's not what we got. We got more of a northerly wind and now a northwest wind, and that has actually pushed the water out into the Gulf Gulf of Mexico. You can walk a couple hundred yards out onto the beach, and it's interesting because a couple days before the storm hit, we had a beach, and then that water with the waves propagating from Hurricane Rita were eating away at the beach, and we saw significant erosion just over the past couple of days. But now the water is very far out because of those winds. It just pushes it right out. Now, we are seeing a little bit of rain here, as you can see, but not a whole lot right now. We really haven't seen a ton of rain relative to the places that are north and east of me, and that's where they are seeing the rain at this hour. And as you look at that radar picture, this is how you interpret a radar picture. The darker the colors, the yellows and the reds, that's the heavier rain. Where you see the green, that's some of that lighter rain. So you can see in Galveston, we do have some of that lighter rain. And then where the heavier rain is, well, that's where the colors are more in that deeper yellow and orangish color. Now, of course, as we're heading through the night, we were dealing with the wind. We saw basically tropical storm force winds sustained here, and we did get a gust of 62 miles per hour. That's before the reporting station went down, and that, of course, blew around some power lines, some trash cans, some barricades, knocked down some light trees as well. But let me tell you, if you were anywhere off of the ground level, those winds were howling. Because what happens is, when the winds are on the ground level, they deal with the land. They have to deal with the friction. They actually come off a very smooth ocean very quickly. That's why you have very gusty winds right at the beach. And then as you move farther inland, well, you have the buildings, you have trees. That's going to slow the wind down. But if you go higher up in the atmosphere, just a couple stories, then all of that wind that's coming off the ocean, that smooth flowing air with nothing to slow it down, is just slamming into the building, and you hear the whistling and the howling. And Bill and Kelly, it's hard to sleep, if you really get any sleep, when the winds are basically screaming all night long through the building when you're a couple stories off the ground.
We feel your pain.
Yeah. All right, Steph, get some rest. We'll check back with you a little bit later on.
Amazingly, I think I saw power on behind her, which is pretty good considering they're in the 60s. Want to get a little information out on the power outages now. CenterPoint Energy reporting 450,000 customers without power, and that affected area stretching from Galveston to Houston to the town of Humble.
And that's right. Energy officials say 55,000 of their customers are without power in all so far. Rita has cut power to more than 500,000 Texas homes and businesses. And again, that's just Texas alone, but we're guessing there's a lot more in the Louisiana area as well.
I'm sure there are, and that instability spreading out with the heating in the daytime too. Dr. Greg Forbes is here, and Greg, I do know that they tend to throw these tornado warnings out just to cover themselves with these eye walls coming in. Any evidence of anything rotating that you can see?
Well, Bill, sometimes there are little embedded swirls within that eye wall, within those strong winds, but a lot of that is that people are a lot more impressed by the tornado warnings. They understand the intensity of the damaging winds there. So that's what Bill is talking about here. This eye wall still has tornado force winds, probably up to F1 in intensity, coming across this area. That's around Jasper, Texas, over up into the Fort Polk area and Alexandria area in Louisiana. That's coming across Hardin, Tyler, Jasper County, Texas, Newton County, Texas, and then Calcasieu, Vernon, and Rapides Parish in Louisiana. I'm also worried about embedded cells, thunderstorms that are more classic tornadoes, very brief tornadoes scurrying around through these two rain bands here. One around the Morgan City area goes up into central Louisiana, and then over around the eastern Baton Rouge area up into Macomb, Mississippi. We could get some tornadoes with that, especially later on this afternoon. There is a bit of a wind shift line coming right across here, northeast portion of Louisiana, and often tornadoes will focus on that when those rain bands come up into the area. The tornado threat later on today spreads a bit farther north, might get up into southeast Arkansas, even in central northern parts of Mississippi. Then tomorrow, it pushes all the way up perhaps into the Nashville, Memphis, and even perhaps southeast Missouri area. Of course, there's also a tremendous amount of rain falling with this storm. That eye wall band, all these other rain bands have 2 to 4 inch per hour type rains, blinding rains. So before all is said and done, this is just through Monday morning. It may stall longer than that. We could get some spots that have 16, perhaps even 20 inches of rain. That is going to cause flooding. So take shelter and please don't drive through any flooded roadways.
All right, Dr. Forbes, thanks a lot again. It's one of those, be careful what you wish for, as they really do need the rain.
Yes.
They'd love like 5 inches over like 10 days, but it's going to come a lot quicker than that.
And it looks like that rain will keep on coming on for the next few days, as a matter of fact. What do you say we join storm tracker Jim Cantori now? He's in Houston, and Jim, we know that you were at least safe from the eye itself, but as you know, this system's huge, like Katrina, so you still had some impact there too, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, we talked about this yesterday, how wide this storm would be, and then now this morning, how, Bill and Kelly, it's kind of unraveling from the center outward. And we've still got some bands coming in here with some 50, 60-mile-an-hour gusts from the north-northwest. And occasionally you'll see a little flash up in the skyline in the clouds, and that is definitely transformers going here in and around the city. So sporadic power outages will continue. Let me show you some pictures in and around Houston here. And as you look at these pictures here, I want to tell you we are waiting to hear from Mayor Bill White this morning of Houston. A lot of the information we are trying to seek is being, what they're saying to us is like, look, anything that you're going to hear is going to come from the mayor later on this morning. All right? We're not giving you any, the only thing we're hearing is that the police report it's been a quiet night in the city. And you can pretty much see that from the pictures here. Streets are wet. We've had about a ½ to an inch and a half of rain here in the metro area. And with the rate it's coming down now, certainly we don't expect any major flooding problems. If one of those bands coming off to the west, we could certainly get hammered in there. So we're waiting to hear from the mayor. Could be a half hour, could be an hour from now that he actually comes on and gives us talk and lets us know what's going to happen in. Let's take you down toward Kemah, which is southeast Harris County. This is where we started off actually near Seabrook just a couple of days ago, and you can see what's been going down in that region. And, you know, more of the same, but they do have more power outages the farther south and east you go when we had winds even a little bit higher, 60, possibly 70 miles per hour. This is near that area, Bill and Kel, that I was talking about, that fire. There was one in Clear Lake, which is near Kemah, and also near Pasadena, which would, Kemah is going to be south and east of Pasadena there. The auto parts store down that area is still burning, apparently, we're hearing there. And you know what else we've been hearing, too, is volunteers are actually needed at some of the shelters. The shelters were filling up even late last night. I think from a lot of the people that got stranded out on the roads with their cars ran out of fuel. People trying to come back this way actually didn't have enough fuel in their cars, obviously got stranded on the sides of the roads. They were still picking up people last night that were trying to make their way back toward the Houston area. So again, guys, a lot of outer fringe effects certainly for a hurricane, but now the big question here for Houston is you've got a base of 2.5 to 3 million people that have evacuated that have to get back in that city, and obviously the logistics of all that will probably be discussed by the mayor, I would assume, later on this morning. Right now, again, we're faring very, very well from this storm. The rain isn't heavy enough to cause flooding, and the wind isn't big enough to cause any serious structural damage. And we have just heard the Pasadena fire is now under control there at the auto parts store. So some good news coming out of southeast Harris County. Back to you.
It's gone from northeast to north and now northwesterly. So can you confirm that the storm surge has not been an issue there in the bay?
Bill, it hasn't. As a matter of fact, we were thinking yesterday that if the wind stayed strong enough, there would actually be a tremendous amount of water pushed out of the bay. There have been reports of waves, certainly down toward the southern part of the bay, with the north-northwest wind and the way that kind of sticks out in a U shape, that we have gotten a little overwash, a little wave action, if you will. But a lot of the water, again, for the most part, with the general wind direction, has been pushed out of the bay and on the sound side of Galveston Island as opposed to the bay. So we've obviously fared very, very well there.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. I know with Katrina, he was actually on that storm surge side of the storm, so at least this time around he's a little bit safer with Rita.
And all we can do is guess what happened there in Cameron Parish there in Louisiana. That's a parish that's only about 10,000 people. Hopefully everybody got out of there, but it's all pretty much south of I-10, and that storm surge there, you got to figure it could have been up over 20 feet.
That's right. We're going to take a look at what Jeff Morrow experienced there at the height of the storm now in Louisiana.
The time, 11:20 p.m. on Friday night as Hurricane Rita slams into the northeast Texas and southwest Louisiana Gulf coastal areas. Here in Sulphur, we're getting some tremendous wind gusts now as that eye draws ever closer. Conservatively, I'd be estimating the winds here at up around 60 and 70 miles an hour, maybe a little bit higher in some of the gusts. 11:51 Central Time here in Sulphur, Louisiana. Rain still coming down in sheets. Not quite as windy right this moment, but the wind comes and goes in big gusts, and then we just get continuous rain. Again, flooding is going to turn out to be a pretty big issue here. Of course, south of us in Cameron Parish, that's where the storm surge is going to be the worst. That's going to be in the next hour or two. And where we are here in Calcasieu Parish, the flooding is coming from the skies. We're talking about heavy rain flooding because it is just torrential tropical downpours here so far. Again, the wind backing off just a bit, but as that eye gets closer over the next hour or two, we expect it to get a heck of a lot worse, and that wind will start to shift around here as well. It is 1:05 local time. The eye of Rita is coming ashore one parish south of us in Cameron Parish. Here in Calcasieu, it is absolutely the worst we have seen, no doubt about it. Conditions continually going downhill this evening. Winds sustained at about 60 to 65 miles an hour with hurricane force gusts probably up around 80 or 85 miles an hour at the present time. Again, some trees are starting to snap here a little bit, and the power has just gone out at the last hotel. Looks like it's starting to come back. Maybe I can come over here and show you. If you look up into that light there, we still have a little bit of power. You can see the wind kind of whipping past it there. Again, that is the sustained wind. I don't think I could stand if I were standing over in that unexposed area, probably up to about 65 miles an hour sustained. The power fluctuating in our area. It comes on and off. Everywhere else in the town of Sulphur, it's been out for hours. Just torrential rains. It's kind of scary because you hear things crashing in the dark and you hear all these sounds, but you don't know what is happening around you because it's pitch black in most areas.
What a night there Jeff experienced. Let's take a look and see what it looks like right now in Sulphur, Louisiana. And again, we've been experiencing some very dangerous wind. We've had a little storm surge out there as well, little or big. We're not sure yet because we haven't been able to survey any damage. But again, we're very concerned about that spot in southwestern Louisiana. There again is a live picture from Sulphur, Louisiana. You can see the trees are still blowing in the wind, but not quite as strong as they were within that eye wall earlier that Jeff experienced.
And Kelly, it looks like the center passed just west of there, and because of that, the wind has shifted now more southwesterly and not quite as strong. And it looks like the center is about halfway between Beaumont and Jasper, Texas.
Now that it's 10 before the top of the hour, you've got Storm Watch, but we just want to remind everybody that you are here at Hurricane Central commercial free, so we can bring you the very latest information on Hurricane Rita.
And the new information on the hurricane is in now. Top winds are 100 miles per hour, and it still is moving northwest at 12 miles per hour. So let's get the latest out there for you, and we can also mention the actual center points. Okay, there's some pictures shot just a little while ago from the southeastern portion of Texas and southwestern Louisiana. Note how the trees have toppled in Port Arthur.
Yeah, we're talking about evidence of just how strong this hurricane was. Just imagine if it was still a Category 5, which at one time it was in the Gulf of Mexico, but fortunately it did weaken to a Cat 3 when it made landfall, packing winds of 120 miles an hour. Bill, what's the latest from the Hurricane Center?
Okay, Kelly, again, I've got the 7 a.m. local time advisory now. Center 30.4 north and 94.2 west. So relative to where it's been, it's gone about a half a degree north, and it's gone just a little bit to the west. So it's generally moving that solid northwest direction, still at about 12 miles per hour. Pressure now at 950 millibars. So it is filling, as they do, as they lose a source of energy, namely the warm Gulf of Mexico. And the center now about halfway between Beaumont and the Jasper, Texas area. Let's show you what's happening now. Hurricane warnings have just been dropped, by the way, west of High Island. So from High Island, which is on the east end of the Galveston Bay, down to Sargent, that is no longer a hurricane warning. So again, Stephanie and also Jim now out of that hurricane warning. Still valid, though, east of there, running all the way across into Morgan City, Louisiana, and this area also east of here under a tropical storm warning, including greater New Orleans, and then extending from Sargent down to Port O'Connor. We continue with a tropical storm warning as well. And by the way, the inland winds are picking up quickly. Likewise, up in Alexandria, Louisiana, right about in here, winds gusting now to 55 miles per hour, and wind speeds have topped out at 50 in Lufkin. They have stopped now reporting. So again, you got to figure it's upticking there as well. So here's the border. There's the Sabine River. There's your center now, just to the northwest of Lake Charles, and that core where the tornadic winds could be right there in that collapsing eye wall, right around Jasper, and also up there by the areas near Woodville in Texas. Kelly?
All right, thank you very much, Bill. We want to go back to Mike Bettis in Beaumont, Texas. He joins us there live where he experienced the height of the storm during the wee hours of the morning. Mike, Mark Mancuso here is telling me that the winds there are southwest at 44, gusting close to 60. Are you in a sheltered area? Because right now it doesn't look like you're being battered too much.
Yeah, actually we are. We've got very tall walls on 3 sides of us here, and the wind is not buffeting us that bad at this point, and we're actually fairly happy about that, believe it or not. We've had a pretty rough go through the overnight. It's been really tough. The height of the storm ramped up quickly and then died down relatively quickly. We had winds at 105 miles an hour here in Beaumont. You work your way farther south, where we were yesterday in Port Arthur, the winds were 116 miles an hour. That's the highest wind gust we've seen reported here in southeast Texas from Rita. Let's take you down to Port Arthur. This is an area we're very concerned about for flooding, for storm surge, for wind damage, and we've had some damage across Port Arthur, that's for sure. You know, that city was abandoned. There was nobody there. Even the fire department and EMS bugged out of town. And when they did that, we decided we needed to leave as well. But we certainly thought the damage would occur. And that is now certainly coming to light that there's been plenty of damage across Port Arthur. We'll probably get down there, even maybe assess some of the damage today. Or we'll definitely get some pictures for you, that's for sure. But so many buildings down there, convenience stores and gas stations and hotels and everything else. And those are structures that are been in grave danger because of Rita. Here in Beaumont, some minor structural damage that we've noticed, at least the areas that we've been able to see. We haven't been able to move a whole lot because we're surrounded by water at this point because so many of the streets have flooded. It's about thigh high right behind me here, and so we can't really get out there and show you what's going on. We might be able to travel by foot and get some pictures for you as soon as light comes up here. But all power is out. Power was out last night, Kelly, to Beaumont. The only places that are operational right now are on generator power. That includes St. Elizabeth Hospital, where we are. They've got 106 patients that they're caring for right now, and they don't have any water pressure either. So it's going to maybe be a desperate situation for them as well, but we're told that they can go for 5 days, if necessary, on their own. So happy to pass that information along.
And Mike, I know you're surrounded by water now. Are there any inland waterways right nearby that you fear could rise very quickly?
Well, the Neches River is very close to us. We're not as concerned that river may flood, but there are going to be some locations where it does. But also keep in mind there are many spots here in Beaumont where we have canals where the water runs off. If you remember the pictures, like say from L.A., where they have the water runoff from the storm drains, and it goes into these washes, and those fill up very quickly. Those may rise with any more rain, and a lot of areas, low-lying areas especially, Bill, could flood. So a huge concern for us is flooding. It has been the whole time. It's coming to light right now, and most of Beaumont, we're told, could be underwater. That's what we were told yesterday. Just a thunderstorm causes this whole city to flood. A hurricane, well, you know what can happen there. We've got over 8 inches of rain and many of the streets now underwater.
All right.
Okay, Mike, thanks a lot again. Your evacuation is vertical, not horizontal at this stage of the game.
All right, we'll be checking back with Mike in a little while. But Hurricane Rita made landfall officially in southwestern Louisiana, 2:30 Central Time, but its impacts are still far-reaching. We want to bring you the latest now. As you're looking at the satellite picture, it's still packing winds of 100 miles an hour, but it has been downgraded now to a Category 2 storm on the Saffir-Simpson scale, and the center is located midway between Jasper and Beaumont, Texas.
And Kelly, look at the expanse. I was telling my kids yesterday, look at the high clouds out there. That's the peripheral effect in the Atlanta area from the hurricane. I want to show you now the oil rigs and the situation there. Again, virtually everything has been either evacuated or shut down if it's land-based there. I know refineries are everywhere there along I-45 southeast of Houston. And Kelly, the platforms, you got to figure with that track the way it was, probably took it on the chin there with that right front quadrant.
And I know in advance of the system, they shut down everything. And that's why you saw probably a lot of people heading for the gas stations. And again, in Atlanta, Georgia, at least in the state of Georgia, the governor has declared emergency as far as the gas goes. So a lot of schools are shutting down Monday and Tuesday. In fact, Friday afternoon, the governor told Georgia that, basically people who have to work, can you please try to work from home? And a lot of counties are canceling school both Monday and Tuesday.
And that's all in an effort to conserve gasoline. I think I heard him say that they could save as many as 500,000 gallons of gasoline per day. Or there you go, the diesel fuel, 500,000 500,000 gallons per day. And Kelly, you got to figure that idea probably will catch on.
Yeah.
I know that the southeastern U.S. is going to have a lot of tight supply courtesy of Katrina and now Rita.
Well, with Katrina, of course, a lot of folks ran to the gas stations to fill up, and that caused a lot of problems. You saw a lot of gas stations, unfortunately, gouging, too.
And we'll come back with more coverage right after this. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's Saturday, September 24th, and we are in storm alert this morning as we track Hurricane Rita.
And Rita has proven to be quite a force to reckon with. Check out the wind here, ripping apart a gas station. This is in southwestern Louisiana. Even the pumps, where'd they go? Well, they were knocked over as well. We'll show you live where that action is happening as we speak.
All right, as we take a look at the bottom line here on this storm, Hurricane Rita, again, it has been downgraded to a Category 2, packing winds of 100 miles an hour, but still we're seeing significant impacts across a wide area because keep in mind this system is very large, and as they move on shore, they tend to spread out and affect more area. So we're talking about very damaging winds. Coastal surge is still being experienced as well, and very heavy rain and flooding that will likely continue over the next couple of days. Well, the Weather Channel is covering Hurricane Rita from all possible sides with a team of experienced meteorologists stationed across the Gulf Coast. Meteorologist Janine Albert has really been taking a beating overnight. She joins us live from Sulphur, Louisiana. Stephanie Abrams weathered the storm in Galveston, Texas, and our storm tracker, Jim Cantori, well, fortunately, he did a little bit better out there in Houston, and meteorologist Mike Bettis is standing by live in Beaumont. Janine, I believe we're going to start with you now, and I know you experienced some dangerous winds overnight. Are you still experiencing some of that right now?
Yeah, Kelly, we're still getting a little bit. Rain is still horizontal. Gusts of wind over 50 miles an hour still, even with the eye expanding and moving away from us. We've been in that eastern eye wall where we saw the most intense wind at about 2 a.m. But even after that, the heavy rain and the strong winds still continue to give us a pretty good battery. You can see behind me, this tree with the south wind is already leaning over, but next to it, the shorter bush, you know, it seems fine. It's the same principle as when we're out in the wind and when we get kind of blown around, we hunch down. Usually the shorter, squattier trees tend to be a little bit more stable, and the tall ones with more surface area are coming down. In fact, behind the camera over there, a very large tree is down, and that's really been the story across this area. Trees down, power out everywhere in Lake Charles and in Sulphur. There's no power at all except generator power and candles and flashlights. But now it is daybreak, so we're starting to see, I can see Interstate 10 from here. I can see a lot of damage over to my right and the hotel, a lot of siding down. And I understand, as I was listening to local radio, that some of the casino boats in the Lake Charles area have sustained major damage there on the water. Also reports of some local school gymnasiums damaged, homes and apartments with roofs completely blown off. So the situation, I think, is going to be very serious as the sun comes up and emergency officials start to go out and survey the scene. We put in some calls to some local police and emergency management. As soon as they can and it's safe for them to get out and about, they're going to join us here live for an interview just so we can get a better idea of officially what's going on. Again, a couple unofficial reports, 7 to 9 inches of rain through this area. Also an estimate, wow, it's still hard to stand. An estimate of about a storm surge 15 to 20 feet to our south in Cameron Parish. And in addition, the wind peak gusts around 2, 3 o'clock this morning, around 100, 105 miles an hour. So a typical Category 3, was noting earlier, a lot like Hurricane Ivan in that it came ashore in the middle of the night. So we were on the eastern side of the eye wall, but on the western side of the eye wall was Mike Bettis this morning. And Mike, Jeff Morrow called it. He felt like the eye would just sort of thread the middle and go right between you and I. And it sure did, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Split us right down the middle, that's for sure. The western eye wall is where we rode this storm out, and at the height of it, 105-mile-an-hour winds here in Beaumont. Really tough storm. It's calmed significantly since then. We're protected on a few sides here, so we're not getting hammered by the wind, but at times it's a little gusty. Nothing like it was just a couple of hours ago. Unfortunately, with Rita, we thought we were going to have a lot of rain. That has definitely come true, and with all that rain, there's been some flooding, but a lot of damage, we believe, now around Beaumont. We've got some pictures to show you of damage to a hotel And we're going to be showing you pictures like this, we believe, all day long. There are going to be areas where we have structures damaged to the roofs. We're going to have windows out, gutters down. There's going to be debris and trees and shrubs in the street. It's not going to be easy to get around in Beaumont, certainly considering there's going to be debris and there's going to be a lot of water. Very high water. The street behind me has a thigh-high water. We were here before the storm made landfall, and we were feeling pretty good about what we could go through here. Let's take you through the beginning of what we felt in the evening, right through the height of Rita here in Beaumont, Texas. It's midnight right now in Beaumont. We've had steady rain and high winds throughout the evening hours. Those winds, what have they done? Well, they've ripped apart some billboards, a lot of sporadic power outages behind me, a lot of blackout there. We anticipate power potentially going out in all of Beaumont tonight. If you don't have a generator, you're out of luck. It is 2 a.m. and Rita is now rolling on shore. High winds throughout this event, and that has meant transformers have been blowing all around us. Some of the street lights still remain powered up at this time, but there's been very heavy rain. We're taking on water in many of the intersections. Some of these roadways will be rivers come morning. It is 3 a.m. We are at the height of what Rita has been able to dish out rolling on shore. As we thought might happen, power is completely out in Beaumont, Texas right now. And with those high winds and the heavy rain, we've got some scattered, strewn debris all across the area. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. This is the closest that the center of circulation has come to us here in Beaumont. The wind is howling, the rain is horizontal, and we've seen debris and heard debris fly through the air, and we're hoping that this is the height of the storm and it doesn't get any worse than this. It's 5:35. We're still at the height of Rita, howling winds. Debris litters the streets, but what's dangerous now is the water is rapidly rising behind us. And that rapidly rising water has put us basically on an island at our present location here at St. Elizabeth Hospital. We're probably going to be here for the foreseeable future. It's going to be tough for us to get out, certainly considering that the water behind us is about thigh-high, Bill and Kelly. There's really no way, safe way at least, for us to get around town. Maybe we'll travel by foot and get you some more pictures from Beaumont here this morning.
And Mike, now 8.64 inches of rain officially there at the airport. May seem like a quirky question, but prior to yesterday, did you see any evidence of that drought? I know they have a deficit of like 15 inches for the year coming into this event. Did it look very dry out there yesterday?
Well, yeah, it was very dry. I mean, you know, the wind would kick up before the rain came, and it'd be dust blowing down the street. It was bone dry here, and so rain has been a welcome thing. Unfortunately, when you get 8.5 inches of rain all at one time, you have flooding, and that unfortunately has occurred for us here in Beaumont, and it doesn't look at this point like the drainage system is working all that well, certainly considering all the roads that we can at least see are all water covered. All right, that's the latest here from Beaumont, Texas. Stephanie Abrams is standing by in Galveston, Texas, and Stephanie, at one point it looked very precarious where you were. It like potentially that eastern eye wall at one point on this track could come right for you, and that was really going to test the seawall in Galveston. Luckily, though, that didn't pan out, right?
Exactly that. I actually passed to our north and east, so we saw more of a northerly wind and now shifting around to northwest. And what that has done is pushed the water actually out into the Gulf of Mexico. So it's pretty interesting how that works. It really makes a difference. If that eye is to the south of you or to the north of you, it can make a world of difference when we're talking about surge. Now, most people think hurricane, and they don't really think about fires with hurricanes. Well, we had a fire here, a raging fire taking place in 3 buildings, and there was a power line down. We don't know if that caused the fire, but there was one down by the house. And we are told by the fire chief that one person escaped that fire, so that is great news to report that someone has escaped the building. We hope he was the only person in that building and there was nobody else left in that building. And the winds were just whipping that fire around. It was incredible to see. And of course, you had to be careful. And we were also worried about other buildings catching fire. We haven't heard of any other buildings catching fire, but the fire department was there and they did put out that fire and take care of that. Now, along with that building being completely destroyed, we also had a little bit of damage here around Galveston. Nothing like what Mike and Janine are seeing, however. We did see some power lines down, some palm fronds around, street lights down, some street signs down, and just a little bit of flooding on the street, more puddles where we're located at least. And of course, those newly planted palm trees, some of those have fallen over, but for the most part, we don't see any substantial structural damage, maybe just some smaller awnings, and also some of those carports, those were torn up. But overall, with the buildings fared very well here, at least where we are located, but we are concerned about the side of the island that was maybe going to see some surge due to the winds, again, coming out of the north-northwest and pushing the water from the bay onto the west side of the island, but we don't have any reports of significant surge at this time. And Bill and Kelly, Bill, you had mentioned earlier the wind's backing. I'm not sure a whole lot of people know what that means, backing, and I want to do a little meteorology, more like 303, not really 101. And the palm trees, I'm not sure if you guys can see them behind me, but they were actually flipped in the other direction, more of a northerly wind, and I want to tell everyone backing. Think of a compass set here, north, west, south, and east. So when the winds are shifting around to the west, that's considered backing. And how I always remember that is if you look at a clock, say north is 12 o'clock, you're going back in time if the winds are shifting around to the west, which would be 9 o'clock. So back in time, the winds are backing. And Bill, that's what they have done. Our palm fronds are now more coming out of the northwest. I hope I explained that well enough.
Very good, Steph, and that's a great analogy. And also, usually a north wind means cooler, drier air coming in, but not in this case, as you know, Steph.
We'll make it Meteorology 404 at this hour. All right, Steph, thanks a lot again. Simple rule there. Backing wind is counterclockwise, veering wind is clockwise, movement of the wind.
All right, now we want to bring you the very latest from the National Hurricane Center. We have a brand new advisory that was in at the top of the hour, and the winds have decreased now to 100 miles an hour. We expect that with a landfalling system. It's now a Category 2. It's moving northwest at 12 miles an hour, and right now the center is about midway between Jasper and Beaumont, Texas. Still packing quite a punch, though.
And Kelly, I think we want to show the rainfall estimation now. No, we're going to go.
We're going to show you the landfall now, and again, it occurred at 2:30 Central Time, right between Sabine Pass and Johnson's Bayou, Louisiana. Again, when it made landfall, it was a Category 3 storm, packing winds of 120 miles an hour.
Okay, here's that radar estimation now. Note the core of where the hurricane has gone by, and you can see that, there you go, it's coming up through portions of Louisiana, now getting into the eastern areas of Texas. Rainfall rates here probably 1 or 2 inches per hour.
And we want to bring you the radar now and show you what's actually going on with severe weather. Let's take a look at Sky Tracker and show you the tornado warnings that are in effect. Sky Tracker 2 will show that nicely. Tornado warnings in effect for Angelina County in eastern Texas, Sabine County also in eastern Texas, and San Augustine. You're also under a tornado warning until the top of the hour. And again, these are moving toward the north-northwest at 12 miles per hour.
All right, Kelly, I want to take everybody back to New Orleans now, where we've had power outages and flooding and wind damage. All big issues with Hurricane Rita as it continues its relentless race over parts of the area. And ABC's Hari Srinivasan is live this morning in New Orleans. And Hari, we did see the levels flooding out yesterday and breaching. Now that the sun is up in the area, or it's daylight, what's your situation out there this morning?
Well, the breaches in the levee have not stopped. I mean, if anything, the flooding in the Ninth Ward, the lower Ninth Ward, has gotten worse. In some places worse than it was after Katrina. Some places just about the same. But now the Army Corps of Engineers have a very difficult task ahead of them. They're going to continue to try and fill those breaches.
So, Hari, once again, the rainfall still west of town there. Any signs of any abatement to the rain there right in the downtown?
You know, actually, downtown's been spared. I mean, we had a couple of squalls this morning, but nothing severe at all. I mean, it almost looks dry on the streets behind me, so that's good news for some of the people that are going to be working on trying to fill those breaches. But again, they're going to be facing these strong winds, and the winds are responsible for pushing those waters over and through some of these breaches and these levees. So that's really the big concern for New Orleans today. But otherwise, we just have kind of wind-driven debris flying around the streets, but nothing too severe.
Okay, Hari, thanks a lot again from downtown New Orleans. Hopefully the worst is now done with for that city, and our storm alert coverage continues of Hurricane Rita, and right now we want to take you back